After spending almost 50 hours in Battlefield 6 in the first week, here are a few settings that you need to change. First things first, open up your settings window and head on over to your graphics tab. This is where we get a chance to address some of the blinding world brightness that Battlefield 6 has applied to the game. I've pulled this down to around 40, 43. Your mileage may vary depending on your monitor, what TV you're using, etc. So have a play around with this. It definitely helps address some of those issues. Next up is sharpness. I personally like a really sharp game, so I've pulled this up to 95. But again, personal preference, have a play around with this. It can make a big difference to those far away targets. Scrolling down, next thing we want to have a look at is our field of view. I personally play at 100, but that's because I'm visually impaired, and if I have it any higher, when I'm zoomed in, ADS, everything's too small and I can't see it. So play around with this, but something around 100, 110, 115, depending on your the monitor size and where you sit and where you play. This can have a huge difference to the perceived recoil and the distance of targets. I would advise, however, weapon field of view on wide and pulling down weapon motion blur to 0 and world motion blur to 0. So this stops all those extra additional effects that have been applied to the game. You don't need them, and all it does is hinder your performance and hinder your ability to stay in the action and stay immersed. Same goes for camera shake. You can only pull this down to 50, but I advise bringing it all the way down. You want to turn off chromatic aberration, vignette and film grain. These are again post-processing effects that have been added to the game and you don't need them on. So personally I like to turn those off. Scrolling further on down to interface and HUD, I turn off infantry HUD motion and vehicle HUD motion, so when you get shocked there's no moving around, and that provides a much better experience and you can see what you're doing even when you're getting attacked or you're getting blown up. Next up, we want to pull out of that menu and head down to icons and indicators. Here we can adjust our icon intensity, so this will make it bolder, brighter, more intense, or as an overlay on the screen. You can play around with this. Preference will be a big thing here, whether you want it to be intense and it might take up more of your field of view, or you want it to blend a bit more into the background so you can concentrate on what you're doing in your initial engagements. I've moved this up slightly to 70, but again, play around. Personal preference is key here. Next off, we want to pop into crosshairs and indicators. Here we can do a lot of customization. We can make our crosshair opacity to 100, so it's super bold, and if you like to have that on your screen, if you don't, bring the opacity down. We can also change our crosshair intensity, so how big and thick it is. Crosshair color, I've changed mine to pink as someone again with visual impairment. This makes it a lot easier for me to see and stand off against the white background, and you want to know where you're centered, so being able to see your crosshair is super important. I've also bumped my crosshair up to thick, and this allows me to see it a lot better. Scrolling down to hit indicators, I've made the opacity and intensity 100% for these, and I've also given myself individual colours to represent different things, so I have as much information as I can when I'm engaging in a gunfight, so I know what's happening at what time. So hit for me is white. I've taken the default of the other colours and I made them a more intense version of the ones that are already there. Headshot, I've given myself like a yellowy gold colour. Kill colour's red, but a super bright version. Armour hits and hard armour hits have their own colours as well, and these are super intense. So I've bumped these up and it makes a huge difference. This next one's for anyone that plays on controller. So head over to the controller settings, edit settings, infantry controller settings, and head on down to the bottom of the aim section. You'll see this aiming left right acceleration, and what this does is when you're aiming to the left or to the right, it's how much the controller will artificially accelerate your crosshair or where you're aiming. This for me is something that I really struggled with. I couldn't work out for ages why it was so hard to make fine-tuned adjustments to where I was aiming, whether that's sniping or SMG. I was either centered or I was way off to the left or way off to the right. This for me was set at 12 by default, but I've pulled it all the way down to 0 and I'm having a much better time. To me, it felt like this was already conflicting with other acceleration curves that are applied to the controls, and changing this has made a huge difference. I essentially played for 50 hours with this set to 12, and it was really hard to manage. As soon as I've changed it to 0, I'm having a much better time. So do let me know what you think about this in the comments. Let me know if these settings helped you or if I've missed any. Subscribe if you're new, covering all Battlefield 6 content, and we're way on our way to 10,000 subscribers. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.